Agenda for this evening, we started out with our welcome, and I'm going to review meeting norms. And the reason I want to do that is because I want this meeting to be effective and efficient for you. And, it's a whole new world presenting on Zoom. The learning curve has been very steep over the last few months. I want to recap the current status of the impact of the pandemic on reopening our schools. We're going to have a presentation by Assistant Sup Laura Granger on our Sylvan Select e-learning model. Very excited about that. We've also will be providing responses to frequently asked questions. So hopefully we already have the question and answer box going, but hopefully through these frequently asked questions, we'll have answered many of the questions you have. And there will be an opportunity, starting already, for questions and answers. We will do that after our presentation. And one of the challenges of doing this on a Zoom is trying to separate the questions and answers from the comments. And your comments, I want you to know, are very important to us. Normally, we would have this in a big setting where we'd be face-to-face. I could meet with you, hear your concerns. So we're trying to provide an opportunity. So the last 10 minutes of this forum, we will open up the chat box at that time, and it'll give you a chance to put any of your comments or concerns or things you want to share. And then we will have those on record and then try to address those at a later time. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, for our meeting norms, please use the question and answer button to ask your questions. You can see that located at the bottom right of your screen. Please only pose your question one time. And questions and answers are reserved for questions, not comments. I think I've talked about that. And our presentation will answer many questions. At the end of the meeting, we'll attempt to answer questions remaining in the question and answer. And if you'd like to make a comment, please use the chat feature at the end of the meeting. And then the chat will be open for 10 minutes after the meeting. And there's the thing about it being recorded. Okay, the first thing I wanted to do is march back in time a little bit and start with the month of March. So much has changed since then. Sometimes we call this thing we're in the COVID years. Time just seems to march on and we lose track of it. But I want to take us through this. So in March, our schools were closed, and like most districts in California and probably in the nation, we implemented crisis schooling. And again, that's not to undermine the efforts of our staff and what they did to try to provide an education for children, but it was a crisis implementation. And we want to assure you as we go through this evening, that is not our intent as we deal with the new mandates from our governor. So in June, the Sylvan District sponsored and held a parent forum, and that time they outlined the reopening plan, and the goal was to have students back in brick and mortar in our school sites with social distancing requirements, and then also offer an online option for families that didn't feel comfortable with their students coming to school. It was a great plan. As you can see in June and July, the district had parent surveys so they could gather information about your preferences so we could plan. My first week on the job here, that was what we were dealing with. We sat down and we were looking at parent preferences. We felt like we needed more information. I was visiting school sites to look at the desk configurations and how we could move our students into that setting and still meet social distancing guidelines. We were very excited about what we were going to do. And here comes July, the later part of July, and the community spread in Stanislaus County is significant, as it is in different parts of our states. And our public health officer at that time directs schools to open with a distance learning model. Then followed up on July 17th, Governor Newsom issued mandates that districts that reside in a county on the watch list must deliver instruction by a distance learning model with very strict guidelines. So we quickly, as you can see, that was July 17th, we have quickly shifted and pivoted the direction to be able to meet the mandates. And just to kind of give you an idea how it just continues to change, you know, this is the week of July 26th. We received further clarification that the governor's mandates do not permit any type of in-person instruction, because we see the need of trying to meet with our students one-on-one or in small groups, and his mandate clearly states that that is not permitted. So with that background and that timeline, hopefully that sets the stage for us as we move into our presentation. At this time, I'm going to have Assistant Superintendent Granger share our new Sylvan Select e-learning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here this evening and introduce you to Sylvan Select, student e-learning experiences connected through technology. Prior to the state's guidance on how distance learning should look, we were already engaged here at the district in discussions about how distance learning in the Sylvan district could look in the event that we had to pivot back to a distance learning model. Based upon feedback from the teachers at the end of the year, and then using the feedback that we received from parents in our family surveys, we were already rethinking and reimagining how distance learning could be improved to do two things. Number one, keep the needs of all of our students at the center of every decision. And two, continue to provide for the first-class educational experience that Sylvan is known for. After last spring's crisis schooling, we all recognize that a more robust and comprehensive model would be necessary to achieve these goals. So to help us distinguish the new and improved model of distance learning from the crisis schooling experience we had in March, Sylvan Select was born. And we are excited about the opportunities and the possibilities that Sylvan Select presents to our students, our parents, and our teachers. So there were four primary focus areas in developing Sylvan Select. First, we wanted to ensure that there was a continued engaged learning with standards-based curriculum. We maintained those standards of instructional excellence. We maintain our commitment to supporting the whole child. That means both academic and social emotional growth and development, and ensuring that there is grade level growth and course preparedness for our students. So some of the most recent state law clearly articulates and outlines the distance learning requirements that all districts must provide for in developing their distance learning or their e-learning platforms. State law requires that students have daily live interaction with a certificated teacher and their peers for the purposes of instruction, progress monitoring, and maintaining school connectedness. This can be through a phone or a device. Student attendance must be accounted for, and instructional minutes must also be accounted for and adjusted accordingly to the state mandates by GradeSpan. Special considerations for serving all of our students must be taken into account, and student participation and engagement in distant learning must also be accounted for. In addition, districts must also plan for how those live interactions or that connectivity by phone and or devices will occur. So in the spring, we added new vocabulary in this educational experience, and the terms synchronous and asynchronous were commonly thrown about. And tonight I want to take just a minute to review these terms because they're going to be important to the discussions we have related to school schedules and the time blocks that we have allocated for student learning. So synchronous learning is considered what we would call live learning. Students learning at the same time in real time. Teacher and student are paired to be able to provide feedback and engage. Asynchronous learning refers to student and learning that occurs at different times. So it can be more flexible. It also can allow students to work at their own pace. So as we talk through the schedules and what the Sylvan Select plan entails, it's important to understand that we're accounting for two types of instruction: synchronous or live interaction, and asynchronous, which we would call perhaps a recorded or interaction or an assignment or a project. But in those situations, communication is not necessarily live. So while balance schedules represent the amount of time we have allocated toward your child's learning, each individual schedule by GradeSpan also accounts for live interactions asynchronous classwork, and virtual office hours for teachers and students or teachers and parents. We believe that these schedules in place at all 13 of our middle schools will allow us to pivot back to brick and mortar learning when the time comes, with perhaps some modifications if necessary, depending upon the site and the grade level. Again, these virtual bell schedules will be described in more detail as I show you examples, but I wanted you to have an overview of the bell schedule for Sylvan Select. So in planning for the schedules that we will be reviewing, I want to take note of the student considerations. What kinds of things did we think about as we planned? Well, certainly we planned around the state mandates, we planned around the feedback that we received, but we took careful consideration for each student that we served. The schedules reflect the time for students to prepare for their day, check their email, and also prepare their workspace. It also allows for time for daily live interactions as we described, including a morning meeting or a check-in to allow student connection with teachers and peers. And this is also designed to be a set-aside time each day where we can continue our emphasis and our commitment on social emotional learning. Instructional minutes have been accounted for with both the synchronous and asynchronous blocks of learning. And we've also considered Zoom fatigue. I'm not sure if you've heard of Zoom fatigue, but it's a real thing. And the research is showing that moving from one online meeting to another can create some fatigue. It's real for adults and it's real for kids too. So the schedules that we created accounted for minimizing consecutive live interactions. Student age and grade were also accounted for with approximate length of learning blocks varying from 20 minutes in TK or K to 30 minutes in other grade levels. Schedules allow for breaks, lunch, movement, exercise. It's all still important. And the schedules also provide for virtual office hours where parents, students, and teachers can connect to discuss progress or answer questions. So here is an example of the Sylvan Select Middle School grade 6 through 8 student schedule. I want to describe a little bit about what you're viewing. So first of all, I want to note that the colors that are highlighted in green on this schedule indicate synchronous or live interactions. These are live interactions where we would expect students to be logging in and being live with their teacher and their peers. These also indicate sections where we would take attendance. The asynchronous is indicated in the white squares where we indicate that those students would be working on classroom work. It is possible that teachers during this time could still pull small groups and be able to provide coaching and support to students who are completing the assignments in their Google Classroom. The gray sections indicate breaks such as lunch and exercise, like I mentioned, and the light yellow sections indicate optional office hours, again, for students, teachers, parents to connect. The middle school Sylvan Select schedule is drafted on a block schedule. So you will see that A blocks with periods 1, 2, and 3 are held on Mondays and Thursdays, and B blocks with periods 4 or 5, 6, and 7 are held on Tuesdays and Fridays. You will also notice that each day starts live with advisory teachers, and you will also see that block C, which is Wednesday, has an extended live period with the advisory teacher to ensure that we are working to build the student connection to school, even when we know that kids can't be in the school. The middle school schedule offers access to all teachers and counselors for support at a variety of times throughout the day, as you can see. And from 10:30 to 11 o'clock each day, content areas of math, ELA, history, social studies, science, and our counselors have priority over that block of time. This is similar to the mascot time that has been implemented in our middle schools the last few years, but it allows for an additional point of contact between the teacher and student to ensure that these students are making progress. And it also allows for students to get the help in a specific content area without worrying about competing interests of other areas. Here's an example of a student schedule in grades 1 through 5. And you will notice as I go through the grade 1 through 5 schedule and also the AM and PM kindergarten and TK schedules, that these are called samples. And the reason that these samples are being provided to you is so that you get an idea of the flow of a day and a week. These elementary schedules for kindergarten, TK, and grades 1st through 5 will have some variations to them depending upon the site's master schedule. These schedules will need to be adjusted to accommodate for the many services that we provide for our students. We will continue to provide art and music in the Sylvan Select model. We continue to provide ELD support, English language development support, resource speech, and all of the other support services or direct services. So these schedules, again, provide an overview of what a typical day would look like for students in these grades. The key is the same, with green indicating required or live interaction or synchronous learning, the blue indicating classroom work or asynchronous learning, the yellow indicating optional times in the day, and the gray indicating exercise, PE, choice, free choice, play, chores, whatever the case may be. In this schedule, you can see what a typical day would look like for an AMTK kindergarten student. And again, this is a sample, but you will see that it has many similarities to the middle school and the elementary, with the variation being around the number of live minutes. Again, I referenced that when I talked about student considerations. We have taken grade and age in consideration as we plan for these synchronous and asynchronous blocks of time. And similar to the AM, TK, and K schedule is the PM, TK, and K schedule. And again, you can see that we've accounted for intervals throughout the day where students would be interacting live with their peers and with their classroom teacher. I also hope that you noticed in all of our elementary schedules that we also allowed for a live interaction each day through a morning meeting and a check-in. Again, we find this very important and foundational to our Sylvan Select model in being able to prepare students to continue to connect with their teacher and build those very positive relationships despite the distance and the device between them. In planning for and supporting Sylvan Select, student materials are necessary. So the first thing I want to address is connectivity. We spoke about that earlier, but devices and Wi-Fi is one method by which we would provide connectivity, but phone also supports that interaction and that coaching and support from teacher to student or teacher from family to parents. In regards to devices, we will talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get to some of our questions and answers, but Sylvan has had an initiative, a one-to-one initiative of devices in many grades. We continue to address the need to expand that initiative. Based upon feedback from our parent surveys, we also recognize the need to address our families and some of our students who have limited access to Wi-Fi. Another important consideration for student materials is consumable text. We are fortunate that every curriculum adoption that we have has a digital component to that. So when we adopt materials, we have adopted a digital piece and a paper pencil piece, or what we call a consumable textbook. So all of our content areas in ELA, math, social studies, history, and science, we have a print companion that is also available that will also be sent home to with our students. In terms of digital access, this is important to note because our digital platform or our learning management system will be Google. We have been and continue to be a Google district, but we are working to expand our Google Enterprise. This will allow additional safety features, monitoring features, and security features that will protect student privacy through Google Classroom as well as Google Meet. Now, there have been some instances in the past where Google Meet had some development and some work to do, but we have been working with Google and our support provider through Google to ensure that we are able to provide all of those security measures through Google Meet. In terms of school supplies, we know that at-home learning will require that students have materials that they need at the ready. We have identified grade level kits for preschool through grade 8 students. In these individualized kits, there are pencils, paper, notebook, highlighters, scissors, crayons, and all of it is customized to meet the needs of students at that particular grade span. In terms of providing these materials to our students, we are going to be arranging for site drive-through pickup with strict social distancing guidelines next week, August 5th, 6th, and 7th. You will be hearing more information about your site or your child's schedule at their school from your site principal.
Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Granger, for sharing that. And hopefully, as you've gone through that, you can see, you must try to imagine the amount of planning and work that has taken to try to put together something like that in 2 weeks' time. As we go into the frequently asked questions part of it, I want you to understand we worked diligently on trying to think about questions that you might have and provide you as much solid information as we can. But understand, if any kind of response seems vague or lacks some detail, that's probably because some of it is gray and we are still seeking answers. You know, you can imagine trying to put this together in this amount of time and wanting to inform people the best you can. But please, there's gaps out there. There's some things that we are in control of, but there are definitely some things that we are not in control of. And again, related to policies and mandates, whether equipment and supplies are delivered on time. So just understand that we face both of those realities. All right, let's move into the first question. And the first question we posed was, will the district provide a device and internet connectivity? And the answer is yes. We currently are waiting for a shipment of Chromebooks for our kindergarten and our transitional K students. It is possible that these grades may have to start the year with the tech support. We are purchasing hotspots to help families without access. We've received COVID relief funds from state and federal agencies, and we've had some very generous community and vendor donations. Again, a lot of the decisions on those hotspots were based upon input that we received from some of our surveys. We are also working to set up outside hotspots at our school parking lots to allow families to connect. We encourage families to visit our website, and there's a link provided here, and click on for free or low-cost internet service providers. So we're trying to provide those resources. Second question, how will my child obtain his or her supplies and device? Each school site is coordinating this process. In addition to, we will provide a device for every child, and we also purchased beginning of the year supplies, and Mrs. Granger shared that with you. The current plan is to set up our distribution on August 5th through the 7th, and all of those distribution days will follow and have clear safety guidelines and regulations, and the principals will be sharing that with you. And you'll be notified of your school's drive-through pickup schedule by site administrators later this week. What type of tech support for our families? Families will receive information at the time they are issued their device with Chromebook setup, connecting with your teacher through Google Classroom, to-do checklist, video links, instructions. The Sylvan Select Parent Resources website is being updated with tips and tricks to help families support their children at home. And then tech support information for families will be added prior to the device distribution. How is Sylvan Select different than the online learning that my child participated in last spring? Again, I think Mrs. Granger covered that, but our goal was to have a more robust and comprehensive program. It aligns to the state mandates for providing daily live interaction. It provides for asynchronous learning opportunities, learning that does not occur in real time between teacher and student. It has attendance and participation requirements, and accounts for instructional minutes as required. How will my child who has special needs be served? All services will be provided to the extent possible and on an individual basis based on the student's IEP. District case managers will be in contact with you at the start of the school year to help develop a distance learning plan in partnership with you to address your child's individual needs. The state mandates do not allow for one-to-one in-person instruction, but there is some flexibility for conducting one-on-one in-person assessments as needed. More information will be shared regarding that. And additional equipment and resources may be available for at-home use as needed for those students. Will there be flexibility in the daily schedule to accommodate parent work schedules? Currently, as you saw from the presentation, we have a fixed model that allows for live and recorded sessions throughout the instructional day. Recorded lessons and assignments will be available in Google Classroom. And teachers may record live lessons for students viewing at a later date and time. Is my child required to participate in the Sylvan Select program? Are there other options? At this time, we are offering a distance learning model in alignment with the state directives. Long-term independent study is not an option at this time, but we feel confident that the Sylvan Select will meet the needs of our students and families. Next slide. Will my child receive grades in the Sylvan Select program? Students will be accountable for participation in distance learning and will receive feedback from their teacher on progress toward mastery of grade level standards and skills. We are working to develop grading criteria for the Sylvan Select per the California Department of Ed guidelines. What will the district provide? Will the district provide childcare services at the school sites? Again, you know, one of the things in my introduction, and I was sharing with you some of my personal life and family, and having grandchildren, and then two of my children are working professionals, and so they are scrambling, trying to find a way to manage their professional lives and figure out, with their children not being in school, how are they going to do that? So please know, we know that's a challenge, and we'll have further discussion about that. But at this time, we will not be providing Sylvan childcare services. But I did want, so there's no confusion, I did want our community to know that our district is working with our employees to provide childcare for school-aged children of employees who are considered essential workers. This is an important part of our district's effort to ensure staff have all the resources available to implement a district-wide learning e-model. We are working with our Boys and Girls Club of Stanislaus County to provide additional childcare services. I have meetings with their director later this week, and we will have further information forthcoming. But please know, we know that's one of the biggest challenges that you are facing as families, and we take it seriously. Next slide. Will the district continue to provide meals for students? First of all, just kudos to the Sylvan Child Nutrition Program. They have been amazing, and those of you that have benefited since March and throughout the summer, the meals they provided, I can say nothing but positive. So yes, we will continue to provide nutrition services, to provide a grab-and-go breakfast and lunch daily from 11 to 1. Meal distribution locations throughout the district will be communicated to the families. When will students be able to return to in-person instruction at the school sites? The number one question. And I want to be optimistic, but based upon the current communication this week that I've had with our public health official, it doesn't look anytime soon. In fact, the community spread has been increasing in our county, and it is of a serious nature. So this is why we want to communicate with our families and let you know that we have a program for your students that will keep them safe. But at this time, we don't have an estimate. We are dependent upon the new mandates from the governor, that our county, any county that's on the watch list, there's requirements with that. And as soon as we have knowledge of that, we will transition into in-person learning. How is the district preparing teachers for Sylvan Select? Again, as you can imagine, just shifting to this model during the summer with 2 weeks, and with 2 weeks to go, just know that is a priority for us. And we have excellent teachers in this district. I don't have any doubts that they will rise to the occasion and present a quality program. But we are going to be providing training for the teachers and staff. It's underway. The plan includes ongoing training for implementing digital tools and curriculum. Why didn't the district choose to delay the start of school? There was some discussion about that several weeks ago. Some districts were discussing that. We did have a serious discussion about that, but felt like in the interest of our families, it was more important that we continue to align with our feeder districts in our area, specifically the Modesto City School District, where many of our students feed into the high school. So we wanted to stay with their school year calendar. And then this is our last question. What problems and unforeseen challenges does the district anticipate? Many, but these were some of the ones that we just wanted to make sure we're being as transparent as possible. We are working to secure devices and provide for connectivity. It may not be completed by the first day of school. It's not for lack of planning or resources to purchase those. It is strictly demand for many of these devices, and of course, just the timeline. But just know that that's a possibility. The other one that a lot of people do not consider, and that's the capacity of your bandwidth to stream from school to home. It may be impacted. We've been doing some initial testing on that. We've been analyzing our network and bandwidth. So we are planning for that. But once all this rolls out, the first day of school, it could be impacted. So I just want to be very transparent that it wasn't for lack of planning if that does occur. And we are considering some alternatives if that in fact does happen. We are experiencing delays in receipt of some materials and devices. These may not arrive prior to the first day of school. I think I already addressed that in the first bullet point. And as we've seen over the last several weeks, state and local guidance can change depending upon the community health conditions. So we may get rolling in this on a positive note. Maybe our county gets off the watch list and we can start implementing students in school learning, or it may go for some time. So again, I just ask for your patience, understanding, and cooperation as we go through this. Next slide. Okay. So now we're moving on to the questions and answer part of the agenda. We have, again, these are probably the more challenging aspects of trying to do something through Zoom, is how do you respond to questions in an appropriate manner. What we've been doing, I have had a note taker who's been looking at your questions. We've had 94 of them so far. So we've tried to group them into categories. And again, if your question is not answered to your satisfaction, please know we will continue based upon these questions to seek ways to provide you with answers. And so again, I'm hoping that I answered most of those 99 questions through our anticipated responses. So at this time, what we'll do is we'll try to group those together, and I will try to answer them, or I will have one of our staff try to provide you the answer.
So one of the questions is around that there was a limit of 500 participants, and there was a concern that some community members who wanted to participate were not able to do so. In addition, they wanted to know if this video will be posted on YouTube or if they would be able to view it again.
Okay. In response to that, this is a very large district, and we certainly want to communicate with our families. We will be putting this on our website. We will look to be putting that on our Facebook. It has been recorded. If we need to try to find some other way to get communication out to our families that were unable to join, we would give them the opportunity to look at the recording, and they could also submit questions to the district.
There are a cluster of questions around technology availability and access for TK, K, and first grade. For the instruction and engagement for those grade levels who will not start with devices, can you talk a little more about that? Is there a timeline to get those devices? And then lastly, if you could talk a little bit about the TKK and what appears to be a full day schedule and what that might look like in practice.
I'm going to have Mrs. Granger respond to that.
Thank you. So to the first question related to the devices and the anticipation of the arrival of those devices. What I can tell you is that our district is not alone. There is a pretty heavy competition among districts, certainly in the state, but around the nation and around the globe for the procurement of devices. And while we are making all of attempts to be able to secure those, production is delayed. And so our vendor is working with us to update us daily, sometimes a couple times a day, to figure out where we are in the process. So we hope to have more information later this week and into next week, and then we'll be able to make decisions accordingly. But do know it is a priority. In terms of what grade levels won't have technology and what grade levels will have technology, much of that depends on our enrollment numbers and how the grade spans basically come out when we start to look at enrollment and how we provide the devices for each of those grade spans. For the grade spans that do not have devices to start the school year or for a period of time, and again, it all is dependent upon the receipt of the materials, we have, again, a paper companion to all of our textbook adoptions. And so we will be working with teachers of affected grade levels or students that aren't able to have those materials at the start of school on how to support remote learning through phone conversations and other availabilities to support the continued work in the adopted curriculum. Again, I want to reiterate that all of our textbook adoptions come in a hybrid model, a little bit of print and also some technology. So we are making plans to accommodate the schedules and the student needs. In terms of TK and K, yes, as you look at the schedule, you can see that it may appear at first blush to be some extended times. I do want to note that these schedules will be on the website tomorrow because I know it's very difficult to see that font, and I was moving through them in order to allow time for question and answer at the end. And so yes, those schedules I'm sure need a closer review by all of our families. So those will be available on the website. I do want to note that the time that may appear as an expansion of TK AM and PM and kindergarten AM and PM is related to the number of breaks. Again, one of the things in planning for our students is that we wanted to allow time for lunch breaks. Many of our families will benefit and engage in the opportunity with nutritional services at each of our school sites. We wanted to make sure that we built time into the schedule that allowed for families to attend to those locations wherever they may be across the district and be able to partake in our meal services, breakfast and lunch, and be able to also return home to engage in learning. Furthermore, I want to note that the bookends of the day for the students, and this is for all students, and I reference the bookend because I'm talking about that first part of the day for them as well as the end part. Again, those are on this schedule as optional activities. They allow time for the student to prepare their work area, to prepare for their lessons, to review their schedule, to check their email if that's appropriate at their age, and also the virtual office hours. So again, when talking through the Bell schedules, there are some times built in at the bookend of the beginning and the end of the day that are optional.
All right, so I understand that we were going in and out earlier, so I hope that you can hear me better now. We have a lot of questions about just devices. So starting, are we able to use our own devices if we have them at home? And if we were not able to pick up the device on the given day that was assigned, can someone else pick that up, or will there be another opportunity to do that?
Yes, I'm happy to respond to that. So in regards to devices that are brought from home or used at home that are not part of the district issued devices. And while we can appreciate parents looking for viable solutions for their child to be able to participate, and we appreciate that, the truth of the matter is that our security and the safety mechanisms that we have in place in order to monitor the devices and manage the content on those devices, including what we push out through Google Classroom and also Clever. Clever is a portal that houses much of our digital curriculum. A device from home will not connect to our Google Enterprise and won't allow us to manage the device and be able to push things out. So in fact, I think it could end up causing some great frustration with parents and families for obvious reasons. When a school issued device is already preloaded with the content and the information that students need, we are able to quickly, effectively, and efficiently manage, monitor, and provide for that. So unfortunately, we aren't able to have devices on our network and into our systems that are not actually district issued devices. The second question, Mrs. Peterson, can you repeat the second part of that question?
The second part of the question was, if during pickup, a family's unavailable to do that at that time, will there be an opportunity, or could they send someone else in the parent's place in order to secure the device and pick up the instructional materials?
Yes, as I noted, and I'm happy to repeat, I know that there's a lot of information, so I'm happy to address this. Yes, there may be, there is a potential that the pickup schedule at your child's school site is not accommodating to your work schedule, and we understand that. We want to make every effort to be able to connect with you and get you the materials that you need for your child to engage in Sylvan Select starting on August 10th. So with that being said, principals will be communicating the individual schedules for their sites, and if at that time you receive the schedule, you would want to contact the school office to let them know that that time does not work for you. And then there would be an alternate time provided to be able to get the materials that you need.
Related device question deals with security features in Meet. And I'm going to group some of these things together. So how does the online platform work so that students are protected and there's control over who can join, the chat features, and also protect student privacy?
So yes, this is a great question, because I want to assure our community that in the Sylvan School District, student privacy and security is of the utmost importance to us. In fact, we maintain what we would call a gold standard, meaning that apps, extensions, programs, platforms, web tools, they have to go through a very vigorous vetting process in order to be able to be permissible for use by our students. And we do that for several reasons. One, we do that so we can maintain fidelity to our systems and secure our systems so that we prevent any kind of malware or threats to our system. And we do it secondly because many of those programs and things that appear at first blush to be enticing and appropriate, in fact, they quite aren't. And so our gold standard requires that certain companies meet age requirements for us. They meet certain privacy requirements for us. So that is of utmost importance to us. In regards to Google Meet, it is true. In the spring period of crisis schooling and school closures, both Zoom and Google Meet encountered many obstacles and challenges to their platform around security. And I'm sure you kept up with the articles and heard the information and heard about everyone's experiences with those. But both companies that offer similar platforms worked very quickly in the period since school has been out to beef up or augment their platforms to enhance security. Google, because we are a Google district and we already utilize our Google Enterprise, it makes sense for us to continue to use the Google features. In addition, the Google features in Meet do meet the requirements and provide for teacher control options that allow for monitoring students and being able to respond appropriately. So we are comfortable with the updates and the new releases to Google Meet to provide that security to our students and to be able to provide that controls to our teacher. Now, because we did not use some of these live webinar or these online learning platforms in the spring, we know that there's some work to do around training our teachers and also training our students. And we are already currently working on modules to support our kids so that they know how to properly and appropriately log in. The last point I want to make around this is that in this time when so much is online, An emphasis on digital citizenship cannot be overlooked. And so part of our platform of supporting our teachers, our students, and helping, really truly helping our students to be 21st century learners and digital consumers is to provide for lessons that outline the safe and appropriate use of all online platforms, apps, and tools. So that part of digital citizenship is part of our curriculum and will be taught through teachers, with teachers in those first weeks of school.
Will we be able to log in and try the technology before the actual first day of school? And will headsets be provided? And a related question from several people, concerns about internet access and speed, especially with multiple students logged in one household at once.
Yes, so I'm happy to answer those. First of all, in terms of the headsets, we are so proud and happy to be able to provide earbuds in the packets of student materials. And I'm so sorry that I neglected to include that, because that is an important detail, especially if you're a parent of multiple children in the household. And it's quite possible that they will be on or live at different times in the day. So headsets, earbuds will be provided in our student supply kits. In terms of trying before the first day of school, yes, and when you pick up your device at the school sites, there is some parent information that lists several steps that we'd like you to go home and complete. And that includes logging on, adding Google Classroom. In addition to that, we are providing tutorial or how-to videos to do that. So using the QR code on your phone, you'll be able to access some of these tutorials. We also are offering the same information on our parent website. It was referenced in the slide presentation, and we discussed that in the Q&A, but I want to just remind you to go to the district website and you can navigate to see the parent resource site. And again, there's tips, tools, tricks, helps, all these how-tos, because we know that if you haven't used a Google Chromebook before, you might need some support as well, and we recognize that. In terms of internet and connectivity, what I want to say to that is, yes, we are all very mindful of the demand on our internet and our bandwidth. I know that Mr. Frederickson addressed the district's concerns about that, but yes, it is quite possible that there may be some concerns in your house. My recommendation, and I'm not a person to know everything there is about bandwidth, but I think my recommendation would be to reach out to your provider and discuss your concerns with your provider in advance of the start of the school year. And also, there's information about that on the website.
During asynchronous time, will students be able to connect with each other? And there's some related questions about interactions with students and with teachers during live and recorded, and being able to access those later with recorded sessions.
Yes, in terms of asynchronous learning and students being able to connect with each other, as I described, there are several safety features in Google Meet that allow teachers to be the driver and the control. We would not be allowing or permitting students to be in small groups or being able to connect without teacher discretion and oversight. So that's an important safety feature. In terms of lessons available, so we recognize that sometimes there are conflicts, that the live interaction or perhaps the morning meeting may not be able to be attended to for a variety of reasons. So in those instances, teachers may be recording those live interactions and posting those into Google Classroom for viewing later.
Thank you. People appreciated the schedules, but had difficulty seeing the samples. They would like to know if the sample schedules would be available for them to look at in a different way, or if they would be able to access copies of the sample schedules provided.
Yes, we will be loading those schedules onto the parent website so that you can view them there and to print them if you so choose, but at least you'll be able to view them there in more detail and take the time to review them that I know you're interested in. I do want to note that the elementary schedule, again, has some flexibility to it based upon the many services we provide at that level. So principals will be working in the coming days to be able to start to build their master schedule around the parameters or the considerations that I discussed.
There are several questions that are related about switching between distance learning and what we call brick and mortar or in person, or when schools are able to reopen. This question is, if students can go back to school and schools can reopen, can a family continue to participate in distance learning if they choose, i.e. not return to school in person, but continue in the distance learning format?
I can respond to that question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, the public health officer has given real clear guidance to us when we are given permission to start having students return to brick and mortar direct instruction. It would be a slow, gradual process. Again, they want to make sure that we are very diligent about controlling the spread. So they want us to start with younger grades first and small group instruction. So when we get the trigger to go back, that would be our original plan. We will have to do more work with that, but just so you have an idea, we would want to start with our primary students first, and our students with special needs and those that need some more direct instruction, and then work our way through. The whole idea when we were looking at developing our Sylvan Select model is we wanted to take this opportunity in a crisis to put our energies into creating a quality model, a model that we could even add to the list of options in our school district. So that was one of the key drivers that Mrs. Granger was led her team when they developed this. So yes, our plan would be is if you wanted to continue on the Sylvan Select model, we would want to provide that option.
Why is an independent study option not being provided? And somewhat related to that, will a paper packet or paper packets be provided for course material with these options?
As far as offering an independent model, school model, again, there are regulations with the state as far as what % you can offer that to. Again, it is hard to offer a model like that without having direct contact. That was one of our concerns. We will look at that as we get more guidance, but our goal was with the Sylvan Select model that we feel that we can offer that same type of program. And again, some of the challenges with an independent study is being able to meet with an instructor one-on-one to be able to get some direct instruction and then given individual packets to move on. And at this time, we want people to give our Sylvan Select model a try. And as we go through this, if we feel there's a need to add another option, we can pivot at that time.
So we have many questions about students who receive special education services and have special needs. And families are wanting to know that how will the needs of special education students be met in the online learning? For example, how will they participate in mainstreaming or receive services such as adaptive PE, speech, or resource?
Again, I'll answer part of it, and then I'll have Mrs. Granger continue. Just so you know, that is an area that districts around the nation are grappling with at this time. We know the importance and needs of our students with special needs and what their IEP dictates and outlines. And, the mainstreaming is extremely important. We are networking with I am networking with the local superintendents each week. We are having dialogue about this. Our teams at the district level are meeting. And so I just want parents to know that that is a priority for us, and we are working to provide those expectations. But Mrs. Granger, you want to? Okay, I think I answered where we are. Thank you.
So there's related questions for students who participate in the honors program or students who are English learners, and what kinds of supports or offerings may be offered to them as well.
Yes, so let me address the honors question first. So in our middle school construct, and again, I know the font was small and those boxes were tiny and there was a lot of text on the page. So let me go back to the middle school schedule that I shared with you. The middle school block schedule, the A-B days that rotate and the C-day Wednesdays, account for a child to attend those periods on that block or that specific day every week. And so those classes repeat. So if your child is an honors math student, they will have honors math at the period assigned to them. So if that's a first period class, then on Mondays when they attend first period, that will be honors math. And then when they attend again on Thursday, that will be honors math. So our honors program and what we provide through that, the enrichment of that honors program and also the acceleration, because our 6-8 math program is an accelerated math pathway, that will remain intact. Nothing changes about that. It's just that that particular period of time will be dedicated to a portion of it, 30 minutes of it live through synchronous instruction and 30 minutes of it through check-in, small group, or independent work. Related to that, the asynchronous blocks of instruction, unless your child is not in a group or there isn't something else that there is happening during that block, perhaps through adaptive PE, resource support, speech support, those can happen in some of those blocks of time. But if the work is truly independent, that time can be reserved and that work can be reserved at your discretion. So there are times when personal home and family schedules could be in conflict with some of those blocks. And one of the questions sort of related to this was, could we do that work at another time? And the answer to that is yes. In terms of ELD, our ELD supports will continue to be in place. Our middle school students receive ELD support through our ELD literacy specialists, and our elementary students also receive ELD support through our elementary ELD literacy specialists. So those supports that I talked about in those asynchronous or those blocks of time through art, music, speech, adaptive PE, OT, resource, also include the support of our ELD specialists.
So there's questions around Aries communication and how and when will we find out who my child's teacher is in their classes, and when will we hear from teacher or staff and have that first connection. And then I'm going to go ahead and throw in that bucket any questions about PE, as well as food, lunches and breakfast. How will that be in this distance learning model?
The other part, I'll do the food.
So I will work backwards on that. So the question around breakfast and lunch, I'm not sure I understand all of that, but what I will point to is that you will receive information from Sylvan Nutritional Services with a schedule for a meal distribution and those locations in the coming days and the weeks. Again, we know that the meal service is scheduled during our Sylvan Select bell schedule for 11 to 1 at the locations that will be identified. So again, we tried to build snack breaks and lunch breaks and blocks of time around that so that we could accommodate parent schedules to be able to participate in our nutritional services program. In regards to Aries communication, I'm so glad this question came up. I know in the past that we have used other methods of communication, including Class Dojo and Remind. And what I'd like to share with you tonight is that Aries communication is a quite robust and comprehensive platform, and it serves us, our students and our families well in terms of communication, not just for the benefits of emergency communication, but for the ongoing communication that it provides. In order to ensure that we have all languages represented and the ability to communicate with all of our families at a moment's notice in an emergency or in planned communication, we will be using Aries communication exclusively. Now, you may have questions about how you can access Aries communication. There are some opt-in and opt-out procedures to that, and I'm happy to provide you some information related to that. It is on the parent website. If you go to our parent website, you will find information related to Aries communication specifically. I can't stress this enough, not just for the times when we're in brick and mortar and an emergency occurs, but the ability to communicate quickly, effectively, and efficiently with all of the parents we serve. It is critical that you have opted in to receive our Aries communication. If you have any issues at the website, you will find an email address for questions related to that or how to do that, and that is Aries, AERIES, @sylvan.k12.ca.us. And the last question I think I had related to that is finding out about teachers. So in terms of elementary schools, we will be notifying of class lists the Friday before school begins. which I believe is August 7th. And the other question I think I failed to answer a moment ago was related to PE. I answered it in a roundabout way, but I'm happy to clarify. In terms of physical education at the middle school, it works the same way that honors would, or any of your students' content areas. If your child has PE 4th period or 3rd period, they will have PE on that block schedule on the days that they have 3rd period or 4th period or whatever the case.
Okay, at this time, it's 5 after 7, and we still have some questions, but I think the ones that we've responded to were the ones we were able to group together. We will continue to reach out to our families and provide further information. We're still working with our site administrators. You may have some connection with them over the next several weeks where further information will be provided, but we will be continuing from the district level to have outreach for our families and provide information. I just, again, I appreciate your time and your cooperation and your patience. I've shared this example with our leadership team this last week when we met, and as we face these challenging times, and some of you may have heard of this illustration, but years ago there was an illustration of, and there's a commercial about building a plane in the sky. And that has stuck with me so much over the years. And I thought it was a great example for the things I dealt with before, but it trumps all of the things before dealing with this pandemic. So this is what we're doing. We are building an airplane in the sky right now. And I'm so pleased with the work that our team has done in this amount of time, but we still have a lot of work to do. As far as the format, we have the chat open. What we will do is we will have this recorded. I will meet with my leadership team to review some of the comments, suggestions, feedback that is very important to us, and look at the questions, and we will strategize further ways to have outreach. I know that I'll never be able to answer everybody's questions, and that I get that. These are tough times, and I'm sorry that this is my first interaction with you, that going through a pandemic, but we will get to the other side, and just know we will put your children's interests first, and they will be safe, and they will receive a quality education. I can assure you that is the effort of our district. We will leave the site open for 5 minutes for you to add additional comments into the chat box that'll be recorded, but we won't be doing any further corresponding verbally with you or over Zoom. But thank you, and we will have this information and posted on our website for those who want to view it later. Again, thank you, and I look forward to working with you through this time.